Good night, Malaysian 370.
March 8, 2014. A routine flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing carrying 227 passengers and 12 crew members disappears without a trace. No distress signal. No definitive answers. Just a haunting silence that echoes through history. Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370's disappearance sparked one of the most extensive and expensive search operations ever conducted. The mystery remains unsolved. What happened to Flight MH370? In this video, we'll explore the facts, analyze the theories, and uncover the enduring enigma of MH370. Join us as we piece together the puzzle of one of aviation's greatest mysteries. At 12:42 a.m. on March 8, 2014, under a calm, moonlit sky, Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, a Boeing 777-2H6ER, departed from Kuala Lumpur bound for Beijing. Climbing to its assigned cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, the flight seemed uneventful at first. In the cockpit was First Officer Farik Hamid, a 27-year-old nearing the completion of his training. This was his final supervised flight before becoming fully certified. At his side was Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a 53-year-old senior pilot highly regarded within Malaysia Airlines. Known simply as Zahari, he was a respected figure with a calm demeanor. Zahari, who was married and had 3 adult children, lived in a gated community, owned 2 homes, and was an avid flight simulation enthusiast. His personal simulator was equipped with elaborate software, which he used regularly, often sharing his passion on online forums. In the cockpit, Farik would have looked up to him, but Zahari was not known for being domineering. What happened next remains one of the greatest mysteries in modern aviation history. Inside the cabin, 10 Malaysian flight attendants were on duty, attending to 227 passengers, including 5 children. The majority of the passengers were Chinese, followed by 38 Malaysians. The remaining travelers hailed from a diverse range of countries, including Indonesia, Australia, India, France, the United States, Iran, Ukraine, Canada, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Russia, and Taiwan. In the cockpit, First Officer Farik Hamid was piloting the aircraft, while Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah managed radio communications. This division of responsibilities was standard procedure. However, some of Zahari's transmissions stood out as unusual. At 1:01 a.m., he reported that the plane had reached its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, an unnecessary update in radar-controlled airspace, where pilots typically report leaving an altitude, not arriving at one. By 1:08 a.m., Flight MH370 had crossed the Malaysian coastline, heading over the South China Sea toward Vietnam. Zahari radioed again, reiterating that the aircraft was cruising at 35,000 feet. 11 minutes later, as the aircraft approached a waypoint marking the transition into Vietnamese airspace, the Kuala Lumpur Air Traffic Control Center radioed the cockpit. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh on 120.9. Good night. Captain Zahari responded, Good night. Malaysian 370. His reply, while seemingly routine, omitted the standard readback of the frequency, a minor but notable deviation. That brief exchange would be the last communication ever received from Flight MH370. The pilots never made contact with Ho Chi Minh Air Traffic Control, nor did they respond to any of the repeated attempts to reach them afterward. The plane, and all on board, disappeared into the night. Primary radar works by detecting raw pings bounced off objects in the sky, offering only basic positional data. In contrast, air traffic control relies on secondary radar, which uses signals transmitted by an aircraft's transponder. These signals provide much richer information, such as the aircraft's identity and altitude. 5 seconds after MH370 entered Vietnamese airspace, its transponder signal vanished from Malaysian air traffic control screens. 37 seconds later, the entire aircraft disappeared from secondary radar altogether. The time was 1:21 a.m., just 39 minutes after takeoff. The controller at Kuala Lumpur was preoccupied with monitoring other flights and failed to notice the disappearance immediately. When he eventually realized the plane was no longer visible, He assumed it had transferred to Ho Chi Minh's jurisdiction and was operating beyond his radar coverage. Vietnamese air traffic control observed MH370 enter their airspace and subsequently vanish from radar. A critical misinterpretation of a prior accord mandating immediate notification to Kuala Lumpur for aircraft delays exceeding 5 minutes appears to have occurred. Despite repeated attempts to contact the aircraft, all efforts proved futile. By the time Kuala Lumpur was alerted, 18 crucial minutes had already lapsed since the aircraft's disappearance from Vietnamese radar. This oversight initiated a cascade of confusion and operational deficiencies. Kuala Lumpur's Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center, mandated to be informed within an hour of the incident, remained unnotified until 2:30 a.m. A further 4-hour delay ensued before the emergency response was finally initiated at 6:32 a.m. While MH370 should have been descending towards Beijing, the initial search, a multinational endeavor involving 34 ships and 28 aircraft from 7 different countries, was erroneously focused on the South China Sea. However, a critical breakthrough emerged. Salvaged primary radar data from air traffic control systems, partially corroborated by classified Malaysian Air Force records, unveiled a starkly different trajectory. Upon vanishing from secondary radar, MH370 executed an abrupt southwest turn, retracing its path across the Malay Peninsula and circumnavigating Penang Island. From there, it ascended northwestward through the Strait of Malacca, disappearing into the Andaman Sea beyond radar detection. This deliberate hour-long detour, unprecedented in known hijacking, accidental, or pilot suicide scenarios, immediately thrust investigators into uncharted territory. The enigma of MH370 continues to haunt investigators and fuel a torrent of public speculation, leaving a trail of devastation across 4 continents. The notion that a sophisticated machine, with its modern instrumentation and redundant communication systems, could simply disappear defies logic. In an era where even a simple email leaves a digital trace and truly disappearing off the grid remains an almost impossible feat, the Boeing 777, designed for constant electronic accessibility, vanishing without a trace is an anomaly. This unprecedented event has spawned a plethora of theories, many bordering on the absurd, but in this age of interconnectedness, commercial aircraft simply do not vanish, but this one did. 5 theories according to The Independent. Number 1. Pilot-assisted suicide. The investigation into MH370 has centered heavily on Captain Shaw, a 53-year-old veteran pilot at the helm when the aircraft departed Kuala Lumpur bound for Beijing. He bore the responsibility of 227 passengers and 11 fellow crew members. One prevalent theory states that a deliberate act was done by Captain Shaw. It suggests he forcibly excluded the first officer from the cockpit, disabled the communication systems designed to maintain contact with air traffic control, donned an oxygen mask, and subsequently depressurized the aircraft. At altitudes exceeding Mount Everest, the passengers and crew would succumb rapidly to the effects of hypoxia, oxygen deprivation. The captain then, the theory goes, flew the aircraft along the frontier between Thailand and Malaysia to avoid raising the interest of the military on either side, before turning south to a location where he believed it would never be found. The official report, however, paints a picture of a seemingly unremarkable individual. It states, "There was no known history of apathy, anxiety, or irritability. There were no significant changes in his lifestyle, interpersonal conflict, or family stresses." The first officer, Fariq Abdul Hamid, a 27-year-old pilot, was embarking on his inaugural Boeing 777 mission without the supervision of a training captain, having accumulated a mere 5 flights on the aircraft. Investigators deemed his ability and professional approach to work commendable. Nevertheless, the notion that a pilot with such limited experience on the aircraft could execute such a complex and prolonged deviation from flight plan appears highly improbable. While tragically, history has witnessed instances of aircraft crashes precipitated by suicidal pilots, most notably the catastrophic demise of Germanwings Flight 9525 en route from Barcelona to Dusseldorf, where the first officer tragically took his own life and that of 150 others. The subsequent crash in these cases typically occurs within a relatively short time frame following the pilot's actions. the extended duration of MH370's flight path, deviating significantly from its intended course, presents a unique and perplexing aspect of this tragedy. Although historical precedents for this scenario remain elusive, the possibility cannot be entirely dismissed that one of the pilots may have attempted a controlled landing or ditching. This scenario, however, necessitates the assumption that the pilot, along with the remaining crew and passengers, succumbed to hypoxia during the attempted maneuver. However, the lack of a possible motive for such a daring and unusual endeavor presents a significant obstacle to this theory. Besides, the investigators concluded, there is no evidence to suggest that the captain and first officer experienced recent changes or difficulties in personal relationships, or that there were any conflicts or problems between them. The investigation scrutinized the pilot's radio transmissions, revealing no discernible signs of anxiety or distress. Furthermore, the final report stated that the automatic deployment of oxygen masks cannot be manually disabled from the cockpit. This safety mechanism, designed to activate upon a significant drop in cabin pressure, would have afforded passengers and crew a crucial window of opportunity to establish communication with ground control. 227 passengers, including 10 cabin crew, on board, the potential for a diverse range of motives for the aircraft's disappearance is significant. While standard aviation security protocols were in place at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, the tragic events of September 11, 2001 serve as a stark reminder that clearing security checkpoints does not guarantee passenger safety. The passenger manifest revealed a diverse mix of nationalities, with a majority of Chinese nationals, followed by Malaysians. Notably, 2 Iranian passengers were traveling on stolen passports belonging to an Italian and an Austrian citizen. However, investigations suggest these individuals were likely illegal migrants seeking to reach Western countries rather than posing a direct threat to the aircraft. The fact that all 10 cabin crew members were married with families has been cited by some as an indication that they were unlikely to be involved in a deliberate act of hijacking. This is where plausible hypotheses intersect with the realm of speculative conspiracy theories. In 2003, Boeing secured a patent for a system enabling remote control takeover of aircraft, a technology designed to thwart hijacking attempts. This uninterruptible autopilot, as envisioned in the patent, could be activated by pilots, triggered by onboard sensors, or remotely initiated via radio or satellite links by airlines or government agencies in response to a hijacking attempt. This patented system, once activated, would override pilot commands and prevent any onboard interference with the automated takeover. This measure was intended to safeguard the aircraft from hijackers who might attempt to coerce the crew into complying with their demands. However, this very technology presents a potential vulnerability, as it could theoretically be exploited by malicious actors on the ground to seize control of the aircraft. Boeing, however, categorically denied the implementation of this remote control system or any similar technology on any of its commercial aircraft. In their official statement, Boeing confirmed that no such system was integrated into any Boeing commercial aircraft, including the aircraft involved in the MH370 incident. Consequently, the final report unequivocally concluded that there is no evidence to support the hypothesis that remote control was exercised over MH370 as the necessary technology was not installed on the aircraft. The possibility of a concealed stowaway, either driven by suicidal intent or with the objective of diverting the aircraft to a remote location like Christmas Island, has been proposed as a secondary plausible scenario by aviation security expert Philip Baum. He highlights the existence of an underfloor area adjacent to the flight deck door, potentially concealing an individual. This stowaway could then disable the transponder, effectively causing the aircraft to vanish from radar. Historical precedents exist for disgruntled former employees targeting airlines. However, the feasibility of this scenario in the MH370 case is highly questionable. Such an individual would have required unfettered access to the aircraft prior to its departure from Kuala Lumpur, necessitating the circumvention of stringent security protocols. Moreover, they would have had to overcome the combined resistance of the cabin crew, 227 passengers, and 2 pilots to gain control of the aircraft. The subsequent disappearance of the stowaway without detection poses a significant logistical challenge. Furthermore, a compelling motive for such an bold act remains elusive. No terrorist group has claimed responsibility for the incident, suggesting a lack of political or propaganda objectives. Ultimately, the verification of these theories hinges upon the recovery of the aircraft wreckage, a crucial step towards understanding the circumstances surrounding its disappearance.
More than a decade after vanishing out of thin air, Malaysia is resuming its hunt for missing flight MH370. The government there teaming up with American marine robotic firm Ocean Infinity for the second time, agreeing only to pay the $70 million finder's fee if the firm finds significant wreckage. This search company, Ocean Infinity, believes the wreckage can be located deep in the Indian Ocean. What do you think?
Well, we don't really know why they think that. When the original search area was described by the Australian government back in 2014, they published a report explaining their mathematical analysis of these signals that had been sent from the plane as it was in the process of disappearing. With the current search area, we don't have any kind of analysis like that. And frankly, I've been covering this case in great detail. I describe it in my podcast, Finding MH370. And there's just nothing that's happened in the last few years that would really give any hint as to why they think they not only think that it's worthwhile for them to go search this area of seabed, but it's a very well-defined area. So they seem to have, or think that they have, some new, very credible and very specific information. That itself is kind of a mystery. We don't know what that is.
And in terms of Malaysia pushing for the search or allowing the search to go on, do we know specifically why, what prompted them to go at it again?
We really don't. They've been talking about this, making noises about it for about a year or so at this point. They have had discussions with Ocean Infinity. I think some researchers might have approached Ocean Infinity and said, hey, we have this information, we have this analysis, we think it will bear fruit. Ocean Infinity then went back to Malaysia, who, as you mentioned, they'd already conducted a search for back in 2018. And so whatever they told Malaysia must have convinced them enough to put the money back up.